KTAR News on air, online, on the KTAR News app. Obviously, you are focused on how the turmoil in the presidential race is affecting Arizona. The rest of the country actually cares an awful lot about what we think, too, because we're one of those states in play this time around, just like we were in 2020.
Our guest right now, Chuck Coughlin, President and CEO of Highground Public Affairs Consultants. Chuck, now that we've seen a shakeup at the top of the ticket on the Democratic side, is Arizona in play?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I never thought it was really out of play. Although, you know, I think 80% of Americans didn't want to see the contest that it was unfolding. I think the president's announcement on Sunday changes that substantially. And clearly, it was always going to be close, guys. It was going to be a close race, regardless, because the country is so divided about what's going on. But, yeah, it's substantially in play right now.
Chuck, we had heard an awful lot about Arizona being in play, but then we started seeing polling numbers that were saying it was certainly leaning Trump. I mean, are we reading too much into those polling numbers? I mean, what you're saying sounds like everything is pretty well within the margins anyway.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think even the polling numbers when Biden was in his swoon post that debate, you saw maybe 3 or 5, and the margin on most of these polls is 2 to 4. And so, you know, you see anything that's 5, it's in the margin, just above the margin. It's a 1-point swing one way or the other. So, you know, now that Biden's off the ticket, you know, you're going to get a bounce here with Harris as people look at this as an opportunity. And the information machines, if you want to call them that, from both parties gear up for the campaign.
Chuck Coughlin, our guest right now, he's president and CEO of Highground. Chuck, do you think that's the case nationally as well in the other big swing states that are out there? We'd heard just before President Biden decided he wouldn't seek re-election that other states were even no longer considered safe for the Democrats. Do you think Kamala Harris has shored those up and makes those other 6 to 7 swing states back in play, just like Arizona?
I think so. I mean, my expertise is in Arizona, guys. So
Sure.
My instinct is the rest of the country is in a similar situation with differing degrees of margin. But it's a whole new race. Clearly Trump wanted to get a rematch with Biden. That's what he wanted, particularly after that debate performance. And now they don't have that. They're going to have this other race. Now they're going to have to retool what their messaging is going to be. She's going to have to not only retool, but tool to be what her message is going to be, how she's going to approach this, how is she going to create contrast with that Republican ticket, what's the best way for her to do that. What she's been doing over the last several days, as we've been seeing, is orchestrating this freight train of momentum of getting her the nomination. And I think that as of today, my understanding is she's locked up a majority of delegates. I mean, think about that. From Sunday to now, she's locked up a first party ballot nomination, according to what everybody's saying, of a nomination in Chicago. And she then can, the next thing she's going to do, I would think, is begin more seriously thinking about what her narrative is. It's out there right now, but admittedly, under this, wave of enthusiasm that's going on, she's gonna have to brook some headwinds and figure out what it's going to be, and then she's going to have to focus on a vice presidential choice.
Chuck Coughlin.
So a lot of things are going to happen.
Sorry, Chuck, the president and CEO of Highground Public Affairs Consultants. And Chuck, you mentioned messaging. And, of course, you're an expert when it comes to the campaign management, the polling and lobbying and everything that goes on behind the scenes.
Yes.
8 years ago, Kamala Harris ran for president. Her issue in the primaries, people say she was a terrible candidate. She was doing well in the primaries, except that her donation, her campaign machine kind of fell out from under her. As a candidate, not bad, but running a campaign, disaster. So what is different now that she starts with this apparatus already in place? How much does she have input into what goes on as far as the messaging and things like that go? And how much is she sort of a puppet of the campaign management?
Well, clearly a universe of difference compared to a competitive Democratic primary, which the entire party was panicked about losing to Donald Trump, And so they orchestrated a primary in which Biden, which they believed to be the only candidate could beat Trump, got the nomination. They talked to everybody about getting out, and they orchestrated the party apparatus orchestrated the conclusion there and gave Biden a path to run in. He then chose her on the bottom of his ticket to express some support for the diversity of the Democratic Party, not because she's from California, because California is going to be always a locked up Democratic state. So he chose her based on her record and her identity of, being an African woman prosecutor, and then put her on the bottom of the ticket. Today, she's got 4 years as a vice presidential record. She will have to defend that largely in the shadow of Biden. And so now she's going to be able to go outside of that, as you were just saying, develop a narrative. And that's going to be up to her team of consultants, her pollsters and those. I can think that what she will want to do is create a narrative with the starkest contrast with Trump. You can already see that in the age thing now that the Democrats are starting to play the age game back on Trump.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, white male in a year of abortion that's happening all across the country, here in Arizona in particular, with a ballot initiative. She's going to elevate that contrast, and she'll continue to elevate additional contrast as she comes along, and then prepare herself for her defense of the immigration record, which I think nobody believes is a great record. You can say there's been some massive accomplishments recently in the drawdown of immigration, but man, that's 4 years into the administration. What took you so long?
Yeah.
That's going to be an issue for her. And then she's going to have to defend maybe some of her record that is less well known as a prosecutor in California, and Trump and those folks are going to continue to bring that up. But the most important thing that she's going to have to do is develop that contrasting narrative, in terms of, Trump and the wealthy versus her and the working class guy. He's up for tax cuts for the wealthy. She's going to play up the working class guy. She's going to play up a desire to expand health care, as we've done in Arizona, to provide more health care opportunities to the working poor. Trump's about, getting rid of the Affordable Care Act. Those types of things that, she can drive a narrative on back. Are you a friend of Putin? Are you a friend of Xi? Do you want to forfeit Taiwan and Ukraine? Well, here's your guy. I want to defend American freedom. I think there's a lot of things that she can develop a sharp narrative on, but she's going to have to deliver that. And she's in the middle. I've said this a couple of times. She's in the middle of this, what I've called a Simone Biles double backflip twisting thing that she's going to have to land in Chicago. And there's a lot going on. I mean, it is a massive operation moving forward.
One or two more quick ones for you, Chuck, and then we'll get you out of here. You're the president and CEO of Highground, Chuck Coughlin, our guest right now. You mentioned the VP selection a few moments ago. What do you feel Mark Kelly would do for Kamala Harris and her campaign?
It's a safe pick. It's a good pick, because I do think it takes Arizona off the board. Mark's won 2 straight elections in Arizona. Astronaut, fighter pilot, victim of gun violence, married to Gabby Giffords, and a prolific fundraiser. A fantastic ad for Arizona. A safe pick. It's a safe pick for her to do. What I would think, you got to think about this as a more ambitious pick. Would she choose, like a Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, would she choose to go 2 women at the top of the ticket in the year of abortion and create the greatest possible contrast with that Republican ticket? There's a lot of upside to that. There's a huge amount of upside in the sense that, it begins to reestablish that Obama coalition of young people and young voters who were very enthusiastic about change. You have to acknowledge 104 years ago, we didn't even allow women to vote. And then they're going to say, here it is, 104 years later, we're going to be running the country. That kind of hope and change message can really motivate a bigger part of the Democratic base and the aspirational part of the Democratic base. But it comes with a risk. It comes with a risk. How much do you lose on the other side of, traditional, Rust Belt white guy voters who are going, no, not going for the two women at the top of the ticket.
Yeah.
There's a calculus that goes on there. I'm sure they got their polling in the field right now, trying to figure out and answer all those questions.
Chuck Coughlin is the president and CEO of Highground Public Affairs Consultants. They deal with the campaign management, polling, lobbying. Can I call you a fixer, Chuck? Are you the fixer? Is that you?
I've been called worse.
All right, very good. Chuck Coughlin, thanks for being on the show, man. Always great to hear from you.
It's a blessing, guys. Thanks for being on with you, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk to all your fans. Thanks a lot.
You bet. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching The Chris and Joe Show. Click to see more from Chris and Joe, and tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.